Okay, well, joining us on the show now is the Halifax Courier's Tom Scargill here to chat all things Halifax Town. Thanks for joining us, Tom.
You're welcome, mate. Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. We're back. It feels like ages.
It does.
I think last time we spoke, I think Halifax were on a pretty decent run. I think they'd just possibly beaten Dorking 3-1,
Oh
I
God,
think.
it is a long time since we
Yeah,
spoke then.
yeah. It's been a while, yeah. So how was the festive period for Halifax Town?
There wasn't much festive joy and festive spirit, I can tell you that. Pretty bleak. Double header against Altrincham didn't bring much in the way of celebration. Lost at Moss Lane and then drew at the Shea, a very hard fought draw coming back twice from behind. So underwhelming, really. If you're kind of looking for a playoff push, you'd have liked maybe 4 points out of those games rather than one. Similarly with Torquay, if you've got ambitions on the top seven, they need to be going to a place like Torquay and winning and not losing.
Yeah, I mean, that Torquay game, I mean, I think you described it as one of the most disappointing defeats of the season. And it was pretty horrible conditions by the sound of it as well.
Yeah, Millington said in another interview after the game, it was a horrible day, horrible game, horrible conditions, just horrible everything. I think Torquay just wanted it more ultimately, which doesn't reflect well on Town because they've had a dreadful season and they're fighting relegation. Town have got something a lot better to be playing for in terms of trying to get in the playoffs, but there just wasn't quite enough fight and desire from Town. The pitch obviously didn't help. Never going to be a good, attractive game to watch, but same old problem really for Halifax, especially away from home. Not got enough of a threat, not really creating enough chances, not looking like scoring goals, not kind of dominating the game against a team who are struggling. And it's their away form that's letting them down at the moment.
Yeah, it's disappointing. I mean, can you pinpoint kind of that why the form's kind of turned again? Then is it kind of, is there any particular reason why that's occurred? Do you think?
They have built up some really good momentum, like you say, the Dorking win. They did win at Guiseley in the FA Trophy, but that was a bit of an ugly win. I mean, Spencer's dropped out of the team lately, and he's a key man when he's on song. He really stands out. Summerfield as well has dropped out to illness, so they're two big players to be missing in central midfield. I think it probably comes down to squad depth at the moment. They could do with having some really good players to rely on from the squad to replace those players, and they haven't been able to do that. It comes down to players coming out of form individually. There's been more chopping and changing, which Millington has identified as something that is hampering them, and is just not being able to field a consistent 11. They've gone back to a back four recently, and it hasn't really worked for me in terms of chances. Just haven't really been there. They've not really looked enough of an attacking threat, and Disa of way started to look a bit isolated again up front. So they just seem to have generally lost their way in a few areas, and they need to stop that very quickly. Otherwise, the season's just going to drift.
Yeah, I mean, looking at where the place at the moment, because they're in 15th place, they're on 32 points. I mean, it is quite tight, and you do have to give them credit because, I mean, it's kind of a remarkable position to be in considering where they were at the start of the season.
Yeah, that is true, and that should be highlighted because start of October they were bottom of the table, so it is an incredible turnaround, and that is a very valid point. But they're in danger of kind of the gloss being taken off that and that being forgotten about if they don't book their ideas up. Really, they need to nip it in the bud now before this run develops further. They've got a really good chance of doing that in the FA Trophy on Saturday. Get back to winning ways, put it behind them, and start on another run.
Yeah, absolutely. I did see on the transfer front that Chris Millington was set to make his first signing of the year, possibly central midfield. Has that happened, or what's the latest with that?
I think it's very, very close behind the scenes. It may well have happened already. and they're just waiting to announce it. I think it might well be announced before the Harrow game, and then hopefully there'll be another couple to follow on. I'm slightly surprised that none of the three are kind of a winger or a striker, which is probably what they need more than anything. Nothing wrong with signing a young prospect who's one for the future. There's no bad time to do that. They do kind of need a bit more squad depth in the fullback areas. It sounds like both of the signings can play right back. Sam Minahan, who's the kind of second choice right back at the moment, has been made available for transfer, so that makes sense. And it's not necessarily that those areas don't need addressing. It's just that there's probably more of a priority in the attacking areas. They did try and sign Will Goodwin, who was on loan at Torquay and signed for Cheltenham and scored in his debut. That would have been a brilliant signing, but in reality, they're probably never going to compete with a League One team. So there's frustration among the supporters that they've not been able to sign a striker, because a lot of the fans have been saying since the start of the season that they need more attacking options, better attacking options. I think they've been trying to address that for a long time, even more so now. But the sooner that can be addressed, the better.
And it's a bit of a break from league football at the weekend. It's the FA Trophy. It's the fourth round, and it's Harrow Borough up. What do we know about them? I've got to admit, I had absolutely no idea who they were.
Well, it's quite close to Wembley, is Harrow, so hopefully it's not the last time I'm making a trip like that this season. I spoke to their manager this week. He's a nice bloke, Steve Baker, been in charge for 8 years. They've beaten Concord, who are in the division above, on their journey to the fourth round, beat Swindon Supermarine, who were above them in the table, so they've had some good results to get this far. Massive game for them. They're 2 divisions lower than Halifax. They're 2 points above the drop zone, so they're not going to get promoted realistically this season. So this is a massive game for them. If they could get a scalp of Halifax, it'd be a huge result for them. One of the biggest wins in their history, their manager says. So all the pressure's on Halifax to avoid the banana skin. They did a professional job against St Ives in a similar scenario in the FA Cup earlier this season. Went out and imposed themselves straight away, got an early lead, controlled the game for decent spells. So I think that's the order of the day again, really.
Is that going to be an overnight stay then?
No, I don't think so. There and back in the day, but it'd be nice if I drive past Wembley on the way.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Is it a nice distraction from the league, do you think? Is it welcome by Millington?
Probably, yeah. I think it feels like it's come at a good time, this game, because they've just lost the way in the league. It's a winnable game as long as they approach it with the right attitude of, it's a chance for us to get back on track rather than, we can take our foot off the gas now. Then they should get through it and hopefully get some goals, which would be great if they could win it, 2, 3, 4 rather than just a 1-0 win. And then they get some confidence back for, back-to-back home league games then against Wilson and Scunthorpe, which ideally you'd want 6 points from.
Yeah, I mean, they're in 6th and 8th, aren't they? So it's going to be crucial. I mean, looking at the year ahead, is playoffs still a realistic ambition? Is that what everyone's aiming for, do you think?
Definitely, yeah. Whether it's realistic, I think it is realistic. I think they do need some additions. I think the squad does need freshening up, and ideally it could get maybe 1 or 2 out as well as bringing 1 or 2 in, because it's clear that some have fallen down the pecking order and aren't really going to be featuring. So if they could get them off the wage bill, use that money more effectively, get some new blood into the squad, freshen it up a bit, that'd work wonders. Also vital is keeping players fit. Summerfield and Spence are missing at the moment, and they're big misses. Warburton as well. If he can have a run of games, he can score goals at this level. But they just need to get back into that groove. They've proved they can get results. They can string results together. They've proved they can play decent football, but just nowhere near enough this season. So they just need to nip this in the bud now. Get a win on Saturday, and then if they can get 6 points out of 6 for the next 2 home games, and they're right back on track.
Absolutely, we certainly hope so. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Tom. We look forward to speaking to you next week. Don't forget to like the video if you've enjoyed listening, and if you want to hear more from Tom, please do subscribe as well.